This is Bob Anderson from Factory Direct Modulars. I wanted to do a quick video to compare rent versus buying / owning when it comes to payments. My industry is tailored towards first-time home buyers. So in this example, I'm going to use FHA, which is the #1 lending product for first-time home buyers. I might discuss a little bit of USDA too, because that fits in that category. And I'm also going to do some comparisons versus average rates of what rent is running in the state of North Carolina, where I actually live, compared to, possibly buying and whatnot. So anyways, I hope you enjoy the video. If you do, like it, put some comments down below, whatnot. Talk to you soon. Okay, for this section, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a breakdown of just a standard example. The key is to not necessarily focus on the technical stuff that I'm going to talk about. The key is to get a few specific points that I'm going to bring out during this so that you can get a general idea of the overall impact on the decision to either rent or own. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to talk about, I want to use the example of the state of North Carolina because that's where I live. So it's a large populous state, but it's cheaper than a lot of states, but it's more expensive than some others. So it's probably a good state to even use for an example like this. So what I did is I went and got some information. I went and drafted up some information. One thing that I got to start off with to give us a basis was that the average rent in 2021 throughout the whole state of North Carolina for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, either apartment, house, whatnot, is $1,089. Now, some of you in North Carolina are going to go, $1,089? That's expensive. And then some of you are going to go, $1,089? That's cheap. Because of course you could be in Buncombe County or you could be in Mecklenburg County or Wake County where that's cheap, But anyways, I have to start with something. Again, we're going to get down to the premise of what it is I'm really getting to later, but I got to have something to start with. So might as well use the average for the whole state. So the average is $1,089. And so what I did is I said, okay, well, let's run some payments off of a mortgage. So over here, I took a $200,000 FHA mortgage, $200,000 balance to start off with at a rate of 3.5%. Some people's rates may be 4, some people's rates may be 3. So again, I got to use something. So I use 3.5. A 3.5% rate on a $200,000 mortgage has a principal and interest payment of $898 a month. Then beyond that, you've got to get into things like taxes, homeowners insurance, mortgage insurance. Well, what I did is I grabbed the chart for property tax rates for the state of North Carolina by county. And there are 100 counties in the state of North Carolina. It's ridiculous. But anyways, so when glancing through this, I saw that some counties had a tax rate in the 0.4, some counties are up at 0.8, but the bulk of them are between 0.5 and 0.65. And what does that really work out to? That works out to, you know, I did it. I went with the average of say 0.6, which is $6 per thousand. So if your property is assessed, for example, in this case at $200,000 based off of $6 a thousand, that means your taxes are $1,200 a year, which is $100 a month, which would be collected in your escrow. So I used $100 a month. Homeowners insurance, I actually used a number higher than what I'm really seeing, but you know, it's a rate that I get somewhat for a lot of the customers that I'm building houses for right now, and it's not a retailer's rate; it's a real rate. So anyway, so $55 a month. Mortgage insurance, which is paid for your FHA loan, runs at $117 a month for a $200,000 mortgage, regardless of credit score. Just doesn't matter. It's directly on, do you qualify for the loan? Yes, then here's your mortgage rate. So that makes your total payment $1,170. Well, you might say to yourself, well, geez, Bob, I'm $81 a month in the hole on that mortgage there versus renting. That is true. You are $81 a month in the hole in this example. I mean, I literally made up this example. But anyways, because the real point that I'm getting to is not what numbers did I make up here. The real point is this. The main thing to understand in the difference between here and here is this is a fixed rate. This doesn't have the impact that this is going to have. What I mean by that is I went back and I did some analysis again in the state of North Carolina. Right here. And I got the appreciation rates of of rents in the state of North Carolina on average for the last 20 years. And the average growth rate is 2.4%. Some years it was 1.5, some years it was 4. We're probably in about a 4 rate right now. But anyways, that's a different story. So anyways, so if you use an average growth rate of 2.4%, meaning that your rent goes up basically 2.5% a year, as has been statistically proven for the last 20 years in the state of North Carolina, then your growth rate would make your average payment in 2024 $1,170, the same as your mortgage. So 3 years later, you're breaking even. Oh, well, okay, well, that's cool. Again, that's not really the point. The point is this. 15 years out, 2036, if you go off all that same thing, you're at $1,555. And over here, you're running off this $1,170. Now, let me clarify something off this $1,170. Is that number 100% accurate? No, because there are two pieces in that do fluctuate. Taxes fluctuate based off of the assessed value of your home. We're going to discuss that in a minute. The other thing is homeowners insurance will go up, most likely, from the assessed value of your home. Also, because the replacement cost of your home, as time goes on, the house becomes more expensive to replace, blah, 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 blah. Homeowners insurance goes up to recoup that. It's unlike a car, your car becomes less valuable to replace over time. Your house becomes more valuable to replace over time. So, anyways, so this would change a little bit. The point is, though, the difference off the base here is $385. It's not going to change $385. It might change the whole $85. So, you might say to me, well, Bob, that's 15 years later. If the net is really $300 a month, I'm only saving $3,600 a year. And that is exactly correct. You're only saving $3,600 a year when you get down to here. It's not earth-shaking. So, here's the important thing to know beyond just the payments, okay? Buying a house versus renting. each one has benefits depending on your situation. If you're living in a specific area and you're and you're not intending to move, and your family needs are relatively known in terms of what size house you want and da 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 da, you know, because renting you can always change. If those things are known, I'm going to show you the impact of not doing that versus doing this here in just a second. But if you have a job that causes you to move, if you have different needs throughout your life and you don't foresee yourself being in a fixed situation for a while, then of course by all means rent, because selling a house, if you don't time the market right, you got to pay realtors, blah 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 blah. You got to pay fees to get the mortgage in the first place. You're just throwing money out the window. So it's not just buy a house based off of what I'm telling you. You got to buy a house based off your situation. Here's the impact, though, the total impact of not making that decision, if your situation is right. Okay? I'm going to get to that right here. So, two things we need to know is, one is that this always changes. We've talked about this, and this stays relatively the same. So as time goes on, this will eclipse this. When? Depends on how much house you buy, blah, 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 blah. But this has a growth rate of the whole price of 2.4%. This has no growth rate other than your taxes and your homeowner's insurance, which are just pieces of the total payment. So, but here's the thing to understand. Let's go back to saying 15 years down the road, because this is 15 years down the road, this $1,555 payment. 15 years down the road, if you go back to historical data for the state of North Carolina and go and look at the appreciation rate of real estate, for the past 20 years, the appreciation rate, this means through the housing crisis and past the housing crisis and all that kind of stuff, it's 3.1% on average per year for 20 years. So if you take your $200,000 house and you extrapolate that out for 15 years, your new home value is $316,000. $316,000. That's what your new value of your home would be if you're at average with the state of North Carolina historically. The other thing to understand is that $898 principal and interest payment had components of it, the longer you own the house, of it being more towards principal and less towards interest. So what's the impact of that 15 years later? Well, the impact of that is that you only owe $125. $125,000. That's what your remaining principal is 15 years later. Okay? And that right there is accelerating more from this point forward. The reduction of the principal. Every time you make a payment now, it keeps accelerating. It's accelerating its way down. So the net difference in just the value of the reduction in your principal and the increase in the value of your home to you personally is $191,000. $191,000. Let's not even get into the fact that it's $3,000 a year, at least by the time you get 15 years out, at least $3,000 a year. In difference in your payments, more like $4,000. So I didn't even put that component in here because that's getting way down into the weeds. So the bulk of what I wanted to get across is this. So there's more to it than just your payment. If you're going to buy a house, if you're going to own property, there's a reason that real estate historically in this country is one of the greatest investments that you can have. But anyways, this is what you're leaving on the table potentially if you don't buy a house. If you have any questions, comments, whatnot, you can either message me or text, put it in the box below, and I can, do an analysis for you also. Keep in mind, don't get bogged down in the weeds. Understand the concept of what I'm trying to tell you. Here's one more misnomer though. If you have somebody that's getting ready to build you a house, and one of the things they throw out there is, oh, and then there's the tax deductions. That's a bunch of BS. There is no tax deduction. You have standard deductions that are already offered by the IRS, like $20,000 standard deduction. Well, when you're over here and interest rates are 3.5%, your mortgage, even at $200,000, your mortgage is only costing you $7,000 a year in interest. So that's far from the $20,000 that the government's giving you right off the top. So there is no tax deduction. So don't let somebody use the talking points that of uneducated knowledge of taxes give you some BS. Anyways, have a good day. I hope you learned something from this. I'll do some others on some other things. Talk to you later. Bye.